Let me expose yet again the lies, bile and hate directed at Israel. The way media, politicians and activists dishonestly demonise Israel and its supporters, creating the climate of hate that we've seen descend into violent protests, threats, antisemitic attacks and even terrorism. Let's start with this disgusting call to arms on Monday night.
From Gadigal to Gaza, globalise the Intifada. One more time. From Gadigal to Gaza, globalise the Intifada.
Yes, that was former Australian of the Year, Grace Tame, calling for an armed uprising against Israel and Jews in Australia, around the world and in Israel. Tame has now tried to defend herself.
Disingenuously distorting definitions has been a cornerstone of Israel's propaganda strategy for decades. Choosing to put a negative spin on the word intifada, which literally means shaking off, is just another example of that.
Really? This is either extremely ignorant or blatantly deceptive, or both. The first and second intifadas in Israel in the 1990s and 2000s cost more than 1,000 lives, with cafes, pizza bars, buses and nightclubs attacked by suicide bombers. The October the 7th atrocities in 2023 were another form of intifada, and even the Bondi massacre can be seen as part of that evil movement. So it is just a fact that calls for intifada are about as hateful and threatening as any rhetoric can get, as we heard from Israel last night.
Words have meaning, true meanings. Words call for actions. And if you can stand in support of what had happened on the 7th of October and to call for that to come to Sydney, the sexual violence that was used as a tool of war, the mutilation, the rape of little girls, the torture and the sexual abuse of hostages that were in captivity, it is absolutely outrageous.
Apart from pretending intifada doesn't mean what it clearly does, Tame's defence contained more outrageous claims.
We learned that nearly 3,000 Palestinians have been evaporated by Israel using illegal US weapons.
This presumably was parroting an unverified report carried by Al Jazeera, the Qatari-based and owned media outfit or propaganda operation. There have been countless wild and damaging claims like this made over the past 2 years, then disproven, but the debunking never gets the same attention as the allegations. The source for this story, by the way, is quoted as Gaza's civil defence. In other words, Hamas. They are quoting, and Tame is repeating, anti-Israel and anti-US propaganda directly from one of the world's most grotesque Islamist terrorist outfits. But there's more.
But instead of focusing on that, our political and media classes are trying to distract the masses by focusing on words that I said at a peaceful protest on Monday night.
Well, whatever else you say about that protest, it sure wasn't peaceful. At least 9 people have been charged with offences, including assaulting police. Yeah, if that was a peaceful protest, I'd hate to see a violent one. Tame referred to unprovoked police brutality, and she tarred Israel with claims of genocide, apartheid and the slaughter of civilians. All the usual blood libels, all wrong, all repeated often.
On Monday night, tens of thousands of peaceful protesters gathered to decry the arrival of Israel's President, Isaac Herzog, who himself stands credibly accused of war crimes, including inciting genocide and advocating collective punishment.
This lie about genocide and collective punishment bears some scrutiny. We hear it all the time as a slur against President Herzog. The ABC loves it. It comes via the UN and has become accepted wisdom across much of the media.
The UN Commission of Inquiry named you as having incited genocide. That was in October 2023, where you said all Palestinians were responsible for October 7. I know you have walked back that statement. Let's talk about October 7. No one disputes.
No, I walked back that statement on the moment of the interview.
During the interview.
Of course, that there are many innocent Palestinians.
Yes.
It was a total lie of that inquiry committee, which is totally politicised, like many other international organisations, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah, Herzog says he was misquoted and misrepresented by the UN Commission, and that's been used against him. What if he's right? What does that say about the UN, the media and the activists? Well, we have quite a bit of that press conference from October 2023, just days after the horrible attack on Israel from Gaza, when Hamas terrorists and, importantly, Gazan civilians flooded into Israel to rape, slaughter, kidnap and loot. Here's what the president actually said, and you'll hear that phrase about an entire nation being responsible in the middle of it.
We are working
operating militarily according to rules of international law, period. Unequivocally. It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat. But we're at war. We are at war. We're at war we are defending our homes. We're protecting our homes. That's the truth.
Yes, he'd been talking about Gazans who had joined the attack, who celebrated the attack and who installed Hamas as a government and did not try to overthrow them. In another section, he also specifically made clear that he did not believe civilians were legitimate targets.
I agree. There are many, many innocent Palestinians who don't agree to this. But if you have a missile in your goddamn kitchen and you want to shoot it at me, am I allowed to defend myself? We have to defend ourselves. We have the full right to do so.
All right, you say. How did these strong but reasonable comments lead to Herzog being found to have incited genocide? Well, firstly, the claims of genocide are absurd because the Palestinian population has grown more strongly than the Israeli population for many years. And because in 2 years of urban warfare in a highly concentrated population of 2 million people, the latest figures show the death toll could be about 70,000, with 50,000 or more of them being Hamas operatives, although no one can verify these numbers accurately, of course, at this stage. But how and why would the UN Commission of Inquiry make this finding against Herzog? Well, it's just typical United Nations anti-Israel politics. Simple as that. The Commission was tasked with this investigation by the UN Human Rights Council, which at the time was chaired by Morocco. And while democratic countries like the US, Germany and Argentina voted against it, other strong democracies like France, Japan and India abstained, while the resolution was supported by a couple of dozen countries that were mainly non-aligned, Islamic or communist. China, Cuba, Somalia and Sudan were among them. So that's it. That's the United Nations for you. They then appointed commissioners from India, Zambia and an anti-Israel Australian human rights activist, Chris Sidoti. Yeah. That's the mob who took those words from Israel's President Isaac Herzog, stripped away the context, twisted the facts and accused him of inciting a genocide that has never happened. And hateful politicians and activists, along with foolish activists and politicians and media, of course, they repeat it all incessantly and unquestioningly, demonising Israel and turning people against Israel and its supporters. It's a tragic and malevolent example of misinformation. Now, I can't do much to stop this, but I can strip away ignorance as their excuse.